The hospital room was filled with silence so heavy it felt like it could shatter glass. 31 of the country's best doctors had walked in and out of that room over the past 3 weeks, each leaving with the same defeated look in their eyes. Machines beeped in steady rhythm, IV fluids dripped with cold precision, and on the bed lay a woman who had built an empire from nothing, yet now could not even lift her own hand. Isabella Laurent, the powerful CEO, admired for her brilliance and feared for her discipline, was fading before everyone's eyes, and no one could explain why. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the unexpected miracles life can bring, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that may need them most. Isabella had always been unstoppable. She rose from a modest background to lead one of the largest tech corporations in the country. Boardrooms bent to her will, investors trusted her instincts, employees admired her strength. But 3 weeks earlier, during an international conference, she collapsed mid-speech. There were no warning signs, no clear symptoms. Her body simply began to fail her. Specialists were flown in from across the globe. Neurologists, cardiologists, immunologists, 31 in total, ran every imaginable test. Blood work came back normal. Scans revealed nothing definitive. Each expert offered theories, but none offered answers. The media swarmed the hospital like vultures, speculating about stress, secret illnesses, even corporate sabotage. Inside the sterile room, however, none of that mattered. Isabella's once bright eyes had grown distant. She could hear the doctors, but her strength seemed locked behind invisible walls. It wasn't just her body shutting down. It felt as if something deeper inside her had surrendered. In the midst of the medical chaos was Daniel Reyes, a quiet single father who worked as a night shift nurse in the same hospital. Daniel had lost his wife to cancer 4 years earlier, leaving him to raise their identical triplet daughters alone. Emma, Lily, and Sophie were 6 years old, curious and gentle, with curls that bounced as they walked and eyes that seemed to study the world with unusual depth. One evening, Daniel's babysitter cancelled unexpectedly. With no other option, and his shift about to begin, he brought the girls with him, promising they would sit quietly in the staff lounge with coloring books. But children have a way of wandering toward stories they don't yet understand. While Daniel checked vital signs in Isabella's room, the triplets peeked around the corner, drawn by the soft glow of monitors and the sight of the woman lying so still. Daniel noticed them immediately and gently ushered them closer, apologizing to Isabella for the intrusion. To his surprise, Isabella's eyes shifted toward the girls with the faintest flicker of interest. It was the first visible reaction she had shown in days. The girls stood quietly beside the bed, clutching a small tablet they often used to look at family photos. They studied Isabella with innocent curiosity, not fear. They did not see a CEO. They saw a woman who looked tired and alone. Daniel explained softly that Isabella was very sick and that many doctors were trying to figure out why. The girls nodded with serious expressions far older than their years. They had watched their own mother grow weaker each day before she passed. They understood hospitals in a way children should not have to. For a few silent moments, the only sound was the steady beeping of the heart monitor. Then Sophie, the most observant of the three, looked at Isabella's face and asked a simple question that seemed almost too small for the weight it carried. She asked why Isabella looked sadder than their mommy did when she was sick. The room froze. It was not a medical question. It was not scientific. But it pierced through the layers of clinical analysis that had consumed the last 3 weeks. Daniel felt a chill run through him. The doctors had been searching for disease. A child had noticed despair. Isabella's eyes filled with tears for the first time since her collapse. A single tear rolled down her temple onto the pillow. It was subtle, but undeniable. The monitors showed a slight shift in her heart rate, a small surge of response. Over the next hour, something extraordinary happened. The girls, with Daniel's permission, showed Isabella photos of their late mother on the tablet. They spoke softly about how their mommy used to laugh even when she felt weak. They talked about how she told them that sometimes the heart can hurt so much that the body follows. They described how, before she passed, she worried more about leaving them alone than about her illness. As they spoke, Isabella's breathing changed. It was as if walls were cracking inside her. Behind the scenes of her powerful career, Isabella had buried a private grief. Years earlier, she had lost her only child in a tragic accident. Instead of mourning publicly, she drowned herself in work. She expanded her company, doubled her revenue, traveled constantly. Success became her shield, but the grief never left. It hardened quietly within her, unspoken and unaddressed. One of the younger doctors, who had reviewed her stress markers and psychological history, began to connect the dots. Severe psychosomatic collapse triggered by prolonged unresolved trauma, though rare, was not impossible. Isabella's body had not been poisoned or infected. It had been overwhelmed by a heart that had carried too much for too long. The next morning, a psychiatric specialist was added to the team. Therapy began gently, carefully. For the first time since her child's death, Isabella allowed herself to speak about the pain. The process was slow, fragile, and at times excruciating. But day by day, strength returned. Her fingers began to move. Her voice grew steadier. The machines that once seemed like lifelines became background noise rather than anchors of survival. Throughout her recovery, Daniel and his daughters visited regularly. They never saw her as a corporate giant. They saw her as someone healing. In their innocent presence, Isabella rediscovered something she had buried alongside her grief: her capacity for warmth. Weeks later, when Isabella finally walked out of the hospital under her own strength, cameras flashed again. The world expected a dramatic medical breakthrough announcement. Instead, Isabella spoke about something far less tangible but far more powerful. She spoke about the courage of 3 little girls who asked the one question no expert had thought to ask. She spoke about the importance of tending to invisible wounds as carefully as visible ones. She later established a foundation dedicated to mental health support for grieving parents, naming it after her late child. Daniel was offered a leadership role within the initiative, ensuring families facing silent battles would never feel alone. If this story has touched your heart so far, take a moment to comment and share your thoughts. Tell us where you're watching from and whether you believe emotional wounds deserve as much attention as physical ones. In the end, 31 doctors had searched for illness in charts and scans, but it took the pure honesty of children to reveal the truth. Sometimes healing does not begin with medicine, but with being seen. Sometimes the question that changes everything is not complex but compassionate, and sometimes the strongest empires are rebuilt not in boardrooms but in hospital rooms, filled with quiet courage and unexpected kindness. If this story moved you, please like the video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt stories. Your engagement helps keep these messages of hope alive.